Hello and welcome to this SC Media UK webinar. First webinar we've done for some time, and it's an absolute pleasure to be with you today. Today we're in association with Picus Security, and this time we're going to be looking at the concept of cloud security. Specifically, how can you ensure your security posture? How can you know how prepared you are to face an attack or even survive an attack on your cloud infrastructure? And also, how can organizations increase their assurance and adopt a more proactive approach to cloud security using attack simulation? A lot to take in, and it's going to be a ride for the next hour. We're talking with some fantastic speakers who I'll be introducing you to in just one moment. But just a reminder about cloud, it's the big talking point. It's been a big talking point for many, many years. Maybe you're using cloud, maybe you're using SaaS apps, maybe you're finding your way around this, or maybe you're just brand new to all this and you're trying to figure out, how can I do this well? Well, most organizations now have a footprint in the cloud in one form or another. Yet, despite awareness of the need to secure cloud workloads and data, the task of securing environments against the latest threats continues to remain challenging for security teams. So before I introduce you to our speakers today, just a little bit of housekeeping for this SC UK webinar. We're going to be running a couple of poll questions throughout the hour, so please do join in with those as and when they appear. We'll launch the first one in just a moment. If you have questions, please do ask them. We have a chat option on this Zoom call where you can submit your questions and we'll put those to the speakers. Obviously, if there's one for a certain speaker you want to ask one, then make it clear, otherwise we'll try and decipher who it's meant to be intended for. And also, you'll be able to claim a CPE credit for attending this webinar. So keep a note of how long you're attending on this, and then submit that to your certification body afterwards, because obviously you have to do that once we're done. Right, let's introduce our speakers first to discuss these latest cloud security issues. We're today joined by Anthony Holmes, who's security lead at AWS. And also from Picus Security, Simon Monaghan and Aaron Harrell. That's the Picus Security, a security validation company, and we'll learn more about them today. Right, let's push on with our first poll question. So I should be launching that now. And we're asking, do you think the cloud is more or less secure than a traditional network? So I've just pushed that live, so you should be able to see that somewhere on your screen. You can see it on the screen next to me as well. There we go. Do you think the cloud is more or less secure than a traditional network? We're going to go for more secure, less secure, about the same, or unsure. So if you're working in an environment where you work in a cloud environment, maybe you're a newish company and you've born into the cloud, then maybe you do feel it's more. Maybe alternatively, you are doing that and you feel it's less, or you're unsure. So do let us know, because it'd be interesting to see your results come in as you stick with us, because we want to get a few perspectives of your view of the cloud as well, and also get an idea of what kind of businesses you are. Just to clarify, we don't see names, companies of who you are. We just see the numbers. So nice and anonymous, as we like it. Also, if you're not seeing the poll, by the way, you need to exit the full screen. You might be hidden behind my big face filling your screen at the moment. So do kind of go to the minimize so you can see the poll running, and you'll see that. Right, let's move on to our discussion then, and let's talk about the current state of cloud security. So Simon, we'll kick off with you. What's your overall take on organizations' preparedness to defend their workloads in the cloud?
Well, first of all, I'd say hi, Dan. Hi, everybody. It's great to be here. Cloud security is a subject very close to our heart here at Picus. So, yeah, we're really interested in discussing this topic with you today. I think in response to your question, Dan, you mentioned it as part of your introduction that every organization now pretty much has some type of footprint in the cloud. And as a result of that, there's definitely more widespread awareness of the risks of operating in the cloud now. But that said, when we talk to our customers at Picus, there still seems to be some confusion about the extent of organizations' responsibility for cloud security. And generally, organizations struggle to keep pace just with the dynamic nature of cloud. Things are ever changing. And that presents a lot of challenges for security teams, is keeping pace and protecting an environment that is changing very, very, very quickly. I think There's been a lot of lessons learned since the pandemic, when a lot of organizations migrated to the cloud very quickly, without necessarily appreciating all the risks. As I say, organizations are very much more aware now. And cloud security is one of the biggest areas of spend in the industry. So organizations are spending more now on cloud controls to protect their environments. But I think one of the final points I'd make here is that, despite this increased awareness, despite this increased spend, a lot of organizations still struggle to really measure their cloud security posture and understand how secure they are right at this moment in time. Because, as I mentioned, it is a dynamic, ever-changing environment, and a posture can change from one day to the next.
Well, absolutely, and all it takes is for a vulnerability or something to a connection to be changed, some switch along the way, and all of a sudden, security posture does change, doesn't it? And that's that's the case with cybersecurity, but I guess cloud, it's. And I get the feeling that could happen a bit more frequently and a bit more of an open, network. Anthony, let's come to you. You work with AWS, and what are you seeing? What do you hear from customers as to what they need when it comes to the other cloud services that AWS provide? What do they come to you for?
Yeah, well, thanks for that, Dan. I think one of the things, and what's always eye-opening for me, no matter which customers I'm working with, the rate of innovation is just exponential at the moment. If you look at technologies that are being built and utilized, like Gen AI, that is light years ahead of where we could be without utilizing sort of cloud infrastructure. But realistically, customers that are building, running, or scaling applications on cloud, security is still there as that top priority. It's Amazon's job zero and our top priority. And without it, there's nothing tangible. It's a real trust model. But one of the things that I see in particular when I'm talking with customers is the legacy viewpoint on security. And what I mean by legacy is the way that security approached, or the business approached security in the days of on-prem infrastructure and some of that more traditional infrastructure we had. And it was always viewed as being sort of cumbersome, and it slowed down innovation. And when you tie that into now, it was always the Department of No. Now what we're seeing is security actually taking the lead and being able to support the growth and the innovation within organizations. But another area that is really critical is some of the bits around shortage of personnel, shortage of expertise, with a dramatic growth of cloud utilization and data protection and privacy, and a lot of those spaces going on. So really with customers, what we're seeing is they want to be confident that they're migrating and they're building a really secure cloud foundation. They're looking at ways to move security from being kind of tacked on at the end of a process. So let's build the application, let's architect it, let's test it. Okay, now we're going to pass it off to security. That doesn't work when you're moving at the speed of cloud. What you want to do is have that the whole way through the process and ensure that you're using automation and you're building things in the scalable at every step of development. And the secondary benefit to having that mindset shift is your security teams that you're saying or that are under resourced perhaps because of the lack or the shortage of security professionals can actually spend their time on far more kind of intense tasks that require their expertise than the traditional process of having to do that stopgap validation at the end of the life cycle. So yeah, customers are really looking to get the most value out of cloud, the way to build that secure foundation. And one of the things and particularly with Picus is customers also need trusted partners, and they need to be able to extend the benefit, or we need to be able to extend the benefits of cloud, but with the consulting expertise of partners, with the services offered from partners and the innovative technology, because it really helps that customer become secure end to end within their entire organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love some of the points that you made there about tacking on at the end. I've often thought there's those in the technologies and the companies that are, not just the companies, the technologies as well, that are born out of the cloud, it's built with security in mind. I'm not saying that there's network technology that isn't built with security in mind, because a lot of it is, and a lot of it's absolutely great. But at the same time, it does feel kind of very fresh that we're moving forward with CSPM, as we're going to talk about later on. Anthony, we're just going to come to you. We'll come back to you. Sorry, I should say. But we're going to see our first slide as we're going to talk about. Well, do you think it's fair that there still remains confusion about responsibility for security in the cloud? And we'll see our first slide of today with that, please.
Yeah, that's a good point, Dan. So I don't think there's confusion. I think quite a lot of this is actually, if you look at approaching cloud and the way it was designed for kind of democratizing and being able to have consumption wherever you are in the world, they take that step back and understanding some of the models and mechanisms is something that needs time and needs to be explained. And this is why the value of these webcasts is fantastic. So what you can see on the screen is the shared responsibility model. And in a traditional on-prem or kind of the traditional environment, everything, so this entire stack would be the responsibility of you, the customer. So you take over everything from looking after the data center and the security of your DC, to the compute, the storage, and all those different bits and pieces and modules and hardware that build up that base data center and the ability to build applications and services on top. With the shared responsibility model with customers, effectively, and the strapline is that AWS is responsible for security of the cloud, and that is of the cloud being up, running, and secure. And customers have the responsibility of security in the cloud, so what they use and build. So we manage the control the components from kind of host operating system and virtualization layer down to the physical security of the facilities. So customers are then responsible for building secure applications. And one of the things we also do is we provide a huge variety of best practice documents. So there's the security reference architecture, there's the well-architected framework, which has security as a pillar, and a load of other guidance to customers for delivering security measures in a cloud environment. So yeah, the shared responsibility model really is key when we're discussing security and compliance of cloud. I work, and I know that the wider security team work really closely with customers, trying to give them the information they need to make risk-based decisions about the security of the cloud and security in the cloud as that customer's responsibility. But in addition to partners like Picus, what we do see is different areas of that security in the cloud being supported and taken care of, being supported and being sort of simplified by utilizing some of these tools. So rather than a customer going out there and building a solution from scratch, their team then delivering that solution, actually with the likes of AWS Marketplace and SaaS applications and some of the service offerings, the ability for customers to very quickly build a security ecosystem around their cloud environment is just fantastic. And it really is game changing when you come to being able to optimize and move at the speed of cloud.
Fantastic. Just a very quick follow-up question for you, Anthony. Is that shared responsibility model something that's AWS exclusively do, or do you see those other places as well?
For cloud in general, the shared responsibility model is always going to be there, regardless of cloud. There will be different takes. There will be different ways of approaching it. But fundamentally, anything that's outsourced. So I remember tier 3 data centers back in the day. And tier 3 data centers, there's a discussion there on a shared responsibility model, because the tier 3 data center is there providing you XYZ 24/7, 365 with redundancies and fallover. So there's always been an apportionment of shared responsibility model. But yeah, for AWS as one, it's the beginning conversation of any security dialogue for me, which is, let's establish where we are, what we're looking to secure, and then work from this baseline of what we assure and attest to, and provide kind of certifications around.
Gotcha. Just curious, that came to mind when I was looking, and fortunately I've got the slide here as well, so I'm able to read it whilst you were talking through it. But I'm just curious if that's something that, you know, any business doing cloud, whether they, you know, a user or you know, supplier like yourselves, if there's something they do, just came out of mind. Let's introduce Aaron then from Picus. What's your view on this, Aaron? Do organizations have a strong understanding of their responsibilities when it comes to cloud security?
Yeah, it's a great question. I believe it to be widely misunderstood. You know, when we talk about cloud data breaches, we're talking about a very high percentage of cloud data breaches within the last 18 months. And when I say very large amount of percentage, we're talking almost triple digits reported. So I think that there's a misunderstanding, or an understanding, I should say, of roughly about 13 to 15% that actually understand the security responsibilities in their cloud environments. So what they're doing is they're mostly relying on their CSPs for data protection and application security. And what we need to do is actually close that knowledge gap. I think that's going to be an essential step forward in fulfilling those cloud security obligations.
Bless you. Okay. Well, let's just move to talk about, you know, one of the options, obviously the one we're focusing on today, about cloud security. That's cloud security posture management. I've probably first heard of this, I'm going to say, at the end of the last decade, which now seems like a very long time ago, but I know full well it is only sort of 5-6 years. But I probably first heard of CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management. Yeah, probably at the sort of 18, 19, and Aaron, you can probably confirm if that's about right, if that's when these technologies started coming around. But just sticking with you, Aaron. Yeah, Simon spoke about cloud misconfiguration. Yeah, let's try that again. Simon spoke about cloud misconfigurations being a leading cause of cloud breaches, cloud security breaches. Can you tell us a bit more about what cloud misconfigurations are and the risks that they pose?
Yeah, fundamentally, they're flaws. They're flaws in the way that those services and policies are configured. So, and what I see a lot of are default settings or out-of-the-box configurations, and those definitely aren't secure in any way, shape, or form. So they've got to be configured to a specific environment. And unfortunately, there's always going to be that human error or a lack of governance or weaknesses that can be easily overlooked and create gaps for attackers to exploit.
Gotcha. Well, that's the thing, and we're going to see our second slide, which you can see on the screen right now. So these are common cloud misconfigurations. Aaron, do you want to just give a quickly run our listeners through that, what we're seeing right here?
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly won't read the slide, won't go over everything, but definitely, you know, in a previous life, I was a cloud security specialist for a large security vendor. So I consistently observe prevention and detection gaps that stemmed from these misconfigurations. You know, unrestricted outbound access or disabled logging, exposed access keys, and probably the most prevalent one that I saw was excessive account permissions. We're giving way too many permissions, and that model just doesn't work in a cloud environment.
Well, that's a very interesting point, actually, because I guess you can over permission, you can over I'm trying to think of the correct term, but yeah, you can give too much kind of access to people, over access, privileged access, what I'm looking for, you know, too many privileges. We've seen certainly causes of data breach happening with that, with network security. Is that something you see with cloud security too? Maybe just stick with you, Aaron, just for that follow up.
Yeah, you see it all the time. It's on a consistent basis that we're seeing these misconfigurations that create those security gaps, make it much easier for an attacker to exploit. And I hate to put it this way, vulnerabilities. I look at misconfigurations as a vulnerability in your cloud environment. So being able to expose those from attackers' perspective is key to closing those gaps and understanding the efficacy of not only the policies that you have in place, but also the controls that you have in place.
Gotcha. Yeah. And also looking at I definitely agree with what you said. Misconfigurations are a vulnerability. They can be the cause of vulnerability. They can be the result of vulnerability. So why not make it part of the vulnerability umbrella? It's a great point. And also, they say the top of the cloud of the slide, insecure access management. You know, we've seen one company in particular have a few problems recently, and now they're talking about adding extra access management. You can read a story about that on SC UK, which we ran this morning. Simon, let's come back to you. I mean, we're talking about misconfigurations here, and this identity access management. How poor is IAM or identity access management abused or by attackers? Or how is poor IAM abused by attackers, I should say?
Well, yeah, Aaron's right. I mean, misconfigurations concerning identity and access management continue to be a big source of pain for security professionals. Excessive user privileges could enable an attacker to escalate privileges in an environment, perform lateral movement, and ultimately help them to further their objectives. Proper governance around IAM is essential. If you think about the number of identities that have access to a cloud environment, potentially hundreds or thousands, depending on the organization. And then you think about the number of entitlements. So these were essentially the robust access control frameworks built around users, groups, and roles. And if you multiply the number of identities by the number of entitlements, that creates a huge attack surface for security professionals to detect. And that number is ever changing. So yeah, it's really easy to understand why IAM is such a burden, and why this complexity can create opportunities for attackers to exploit them.
Yeah. And we see that the slide just, the slide was just there. That's all right. But you're talking about IAM, it is a burden. It's been a challenge, I think, for businesses for many years. I've had the pleasure of covering cybersecurity for more than 15 years, and IAM is the kind of the persistent challenge. I'm going to call it a problem. It's certainly a challenge that kind of goes around. And there's a reason why we see analysts talk about this and solutions pop up and come and go, and we still have problems with all different types of access management. But ultimately, I think the problem you're having, or problem that businesses probably have, is how do you know who's having access, which goes back to some of the points we were making a bit earlier on. Let's come back to Anthony then. How do you think security teams can keep pace to ensure that they can identify these misconfigurations and policy weaknesses? What can they be doing better?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. So I think taking a shift off kind of some of the security side of things. Actually, there's, as mentioned in my earlier comments, because there's this resource allocation that needs to go in for kind of the hunting or looking and reviewing, and then also the remediation tasks and the traditional stuff. One of the great mechanisms to build scale into these security teams is just leveraging the automation and the amount of automation that can be undertaken with cloud and with some of these cloud environments. Being able to scale that security team with automation and kind of proactive mechanisms is just vital. Whether it's AWS or some partner offerings that can feed into some of those integration points, allowing that security team to move from the reactive alert kind of, this has come in, let's identify, let's review, let's pass it on, but it's a remedial task that constantly burdens the organization. Moving away from that to being able to automate that and then look at the proactive security work that really supports the wider goals of an organization is what allows them to innovate and allows them to secure in a far more pragmatic way. A huge amount of my time at the moment is moving from spending time that I saw at the beginning with kind of customers on that migration journey, now into the modernization journey, which is they've done a cloud migration, they've understood the ways or the new ways of working and the new ways of them to approach things. And then they go through the modernization phase of, okay, well, if I have a person that's focused on this task, how much of their time can I automate to allow them and allocate them time to go and do ahead of the curve work and the proactive work to be able to continually innovate and moving some of those areas, which is what modernization is all about, is really keeping things moving forward. It's not a case of you build it and it stays. It's a case of you build it and you continually modernize and grow and utilize new tools that are made available to you. So yeah, that's a huge one for me. And And the shift is really a primary focus. So yeah, moving from response and being able to really do an analysis, a root cause, and then a remediation on the more important or on the more kind of intensive areas of security. So yeah, that automation piece for me is a huge area of opportunity.
Oh yes, that's a great point, Anthony. I think about modernization, about pushing forward, because I think ultimately we're looking at things like SaaS and cloud. It's some people might not say it's that modern anymore, but I certainly kind of feel it's very modern, and a lot of people have probably been around for a while. I probably agree it's modern, but the whole point, I guess, is it allows you to then have a constantly moving defense, or even not even just about defense and security perspective, but operation actually, and to actually say, this is actually something that we're doing well, and we can keep adapting. We're not standing still at this point in time. So it's an interesting concept, and I think that pushes us towards how can you be sure your posture is secure. And Simon, let's come back to you. What level of assurance does automated cloud security posture management provide?
Well, firstly, I would say that I absolutely 100% agree with Anthony about the need to automate. I think it's absolutely critical now to identify gaps as early as possible, and also to alleviate some of the pressures of remediating and mitigating those gaps. So yeah, I absolutely agree on that point. What we see now is more organizations using automated cloud security posture management tools to help audit their environments, to identify misconfigurations, the types that Aaron was talking about a little bit earlier. And yeah, automating that process is really critical. And we would definitely advocate the use of those tools to do that. But what I would say is with traditional security posture management tools is that they do also have some shortcomings. Some of the tools out there will audit your environment, but they won't necessarily help you to prioritize the risks. So it might present a long list of misconfigurations, but we know that security teams are stretched. Anthony was talking about the skills gap a little bit earlier. How do you find the time to actually go through everything and prioritize and fix everything? So context is important, and security posture management tools in isolation can fall short a little bit in that regard. And I think the second point I would make here is also around the level of assurance that cloud security posture management tools offer. Yes, they're good at identifying gaps. Some of them will help you to mitigate those gaps. But really, once you've applied the mitigation, how do you know that it's effective? How do you know that it's worked and is actually addressing what could potentially be a major misconfiguration in your environment? So I think on its own, security posture management tools are great, but they don't necessarily enable security teams to be as proactive as they would like and really focus their attention in the areas that matter most.
Gotcha. That's good to know. Well, I think as we're pretty much on the halfway point here, actually, in our time today, so I think I will stop that first poll vote that we started at the start. I'll just stop that there. We'll be doing one in a few more minutes. We'll do a second poll, but just for now, we asked you: do you think the cloud is more or less secure than a traditional network? Most of you, 50% of you, only about 8 of you voted actually, but of that, half of you said 50% said about the same. 30. Oh, you can see it right there. You go. 38% said more secure. Only 13% unsure. No one said less secure. So thank you very much. It's good to see that cloud is trusted. That's I remember a good conversation with a journalist friend of mine some years ago saying who come out of security and come back saying people still saying cloud's unsecure. No, well, cloud is everywhere, and it is secure, which is good news for all. Let's move on to our next sort of section. Then we're going to talk about cloud security validation, and we'll go back to Aaron for this one. What should organizations be doing beyond basic cloud security posture management? What are the other steps you'd recommend they take?
Yeah, that's great. I think what we need is additional assurance. We can definitely assess our what we want to do is assess our security through the eyes of an attacker. One way to do this, you could definitely conduct a pen test. A much more proactive way is to use attack simulation to reproduce those common scenarios consistently on a regular basis. Really here at Picus, our approach is to simulate a very wide range of attack scenarios, privilege escalation scenarios to help those organizations understand the impact of breaches. And it could be a number of things that you could attach a role policy for, current role privilege escalation. You can pass an existing role to CodeStar privilege esc. It could be an EC2 instance, SSH public key privilege escalation. There's literally hundreds of ways that we can perform some type of privilege escalation simulation in order to give you not only a better understanding of what your environment is susceptible to, but also how to mitigate those security gaps. And I think that's key here. Here's the results of the test. Now you go fix it. We don't want to do that. We want to give you the mitigation guidance in order for you to close those security gaps and make you much more secure from a posture perspective.
Gotcha. Okay. I think it's an interesting concept, and I think we'll talk a bit more about attack simulation a bit later on. It becomes a bit more of an open sort of question section at the end. So if you do have questions and you're listening to this, then do feel free to send those in, and we'll tackle those a bit later on. But I think it's well. Let's come back to Simon actually and ask about the breach mindset. Aaron's talked about attack simulation. Is a breach mindset a good way to increase your cloud security assurance, Simon?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it's now vital. So Aaron there was talking about adopting the perspective of an attacker. And attack simulation is one key way to be able to achieve that. But I think now organizations have to plan for the worst. I think ultimately every organization is probably going to be breached at some point. And the real way to mitigate risk now is to think like an attacker and limit the blast radius. So once an attacker is inside your network, is really think about what they're going to do there, how they're going to potentially look to achieve their objective, and limit that radius as much as possible. That way you can prevent an intrusion from becoming, a serious business impacting incident.
Great. Well, yeah, I think we're going to just push our second poll question. By the way, a few of you did actually put your response in the questions. By the way, I just noticed that. So do please put it in the poll. So we actually do record those. So I'm just seeing a few people saying more and less, but we'll run this second one right now. So we'll just push that live. I'm asking, what sort of tools or what type of tools do you use to manage your cloud security? So we've got cloud native, open source, a combination maybe of those and maybe something else, or nothing at all. Maybe you're joining us today to learn a bit more about that. So that should be open now. So please do answer those. Oh, excuse me, select which one. Please do answer, of course. But yeah, please do select the one that's most appropriate to you, because we want to get some good responses to that. So that's going to leave that open for 15, 20 minutes, something like that. We'll come back to that one. So let's move on to exposure management then, because this is something where we've seen sort of strategies moving away from vulnerability management to exposure management and some understanding what it is. Aaron, let's come to you first. What other aspects of an organization's security should be validated?
I believe all. And that's really addressing a wide range of those validation use cases. We need to be able to not only interrogate or audit the policies that we have configured in those cloud environments, but also test the efficacy of the controls that we have in place. So whether you're utilizing cloud native security controls or whether you're using vendor security controls, we certainly want to validate that those are working the way that we want them to work in our environments. We can do attack path validation, SOC optimization. Really what it comes down to is exposure management. We want to help organizations prioritize the exposures that matter to them, but also give them visibility into how those compensating controls are actually responding.
Gotcha. Okay. And Anthony, back to you as well. It's an interesting point about the need for security teams to identify the most critical issues. Sounds like a silly question, but it makes sense. Why is strong security so vital for customers?
It sounds like a funny question, but actually it's a really impactful one. If you look at how much of our lives are now spent online with SaaS-based companies or utilizing things for our working day, and particularly with remote work and this whole kind of change from clocking at 9 in an office building with a front door, that I don't think anyone's done that for more than 2 days in a row for a long period of time. When we look at this kind of global change that we're undertaking at the moment, strong security is core, and it's at the core of any organization's ability to enable digital transformation and also to be able to innovate. If you're trying to build something and grow and explore off a really weak foundation, it doesn't help. You need to have a strong foundation and be able to grow and know that from that lens, you're really building something tangible, and security is going to be there for you and your downstream customers, partners, and everyone else involved. So yeah, we help and AWS help and me and my team help organizations develop and evolve security, identity, and compliance away from being kind of subject areas into key business enablers. And security really is our top priority. AWS has invested so much time, effort, and expertise into security and building a secure cloud infrastructure that it's backed by 300 tools, the trust of millions of customers, and some of the most security sensitive organizations like government, healthcare, and financial services utilizing these offices. But one of the things that really sticks out to me is these customers are telling us that the security of their apps and their data on AWS is materially better than that and in their own on-premise infrastructure or in other cloud environments. And for us, we innovate on behalf of our customers. Customer obsession is kind of one of the biggest leadership principles, and we always work back from the customers. So that voice of the customer and being able to provide them with the confidence to enable their business is a crucial element for AWS. So yeah, when it comes to kind of a huge set of security solutions, a really broad and vast array of technology partners, the likes of Picus included, that integrate into that portfolio and work to secure customers, that's what gives customers a huge amount of strong security. And the reason why they need it is because the downstream, their customers and their customers, fundamentally, this whole ecosystem is built off trust and security. And that's why the most customer obsessed thing to do from an AWS perspective is just have security as that number one non-negotiable top priority, and work with customers and partners to really bake it in, that we're building something strong.
Just a sort of side question to you, Anthony. I mean, when you work with customers, do a lot of them come in with security is sort of like the priority, or is it a lot of the time it's like, they just want something that works?
No, so for every conversation with customers, security is that number one priority. It is the foundation of kind of the number one discussion before we move into anything else. Understanding both their security requirements and where they are as an organization, and also how we can work together. That's what builds a relationship. And that's what builds a long-term relationship between AWS and our customers. So it's not that side note at the end. Let's have a quick chat about it. It's upfront. That's the number one conversation to have. And once we've understood that, then we can architect in the correct way what the deliverable is that the customer is looking for.
Gotcha. No, just curious. It's I read too many surveys where it's like, security isn't a concern for businesses. And I'm like, well, it really should be. And I suspect it very much is a lot of the time. It's just the right people haven't been asked. Aaron, let's come back to you then, because, Picus, and I think is a customer of, client of a partner. Let's get the right word of AWS. How do third-party tools like Picus complement the native tools in AWS?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we do is we actually are going to provide you an independent perspective, and we're going to give you that independent perspective from the view of an attacker. So giving you much more visibility in how you're going to respond, or how those controls are going to respond to real world binary attacks that we're going to be able to run safely in your production environment.
Gotcha. Okay. And let's just, before we we'll work through, we got about 15 minutes, maybe a bit less than that left. Simon, just before we kind of move to a bit more open questions and we look at, like the poll questions, some of the questions from the audience, where do you kind of feel the sort of the where we are with CSPM here in 2024? Is there anything you'd kind of feel people need to know? Is it so if people are considering this, if they haven't already invested in a cloud security posture management, what's the considerations to make when people are actually looking at this as an option?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, cloud security posture management, it's essential to be proactive and identify risks in your environment as early as possible, because the earlier you can identify gaps, the sooner you can close them, and therefore the less likely that an attacker is going to be able to exploit them. But I think one of the key takeaways for me from this session that I'd like to give to the audience really is this view about the need to stop assuming that everything's working as you intend it to be, which is why I feel that organizations need to start to think about what more they can do beyond just cloud security posture management. A simple audit of their environment is great, but how do they know that things are operating as they intend them to be? Once they fix a misconfiguration, how do they know that's effective? And just because that you have the controls in place, and whoever provides those controls, it's always good to validate them from an independent perspective, or indeed the perspective of an attacker, really just to obtain that additional assurance that you need to be able to give to your stakeholders internally, but also auditors externally as well. If your organization is driven by compliance. So really, yeah, the message from me is really to think about how you need to evolve your approach, and don't just assume, but really validate and get that confidence that your cloud security is in the best shape possible.
Absolutely. And maybe just to follow on for you, Simon, I mean, when people kind of similar to what I asked to Anthony earlier on, when people come to Picus, they're sort of thinking, right, I've been hearing about this. I want to do more cloud. I want to do my virtualization. That hear all the words that come out of the whichever event they've been to, and they hear all these things. Is it an easy quick answer to that is probably no, depends on the business. But is it an easy transition for businesses to move from network, if they're in sort of cloud, and it's like, okay, well, here's where you start? Or is it quite tricky to actually sort of say, right, this is how you move from being a network business to a cloud business, but here are the steps you can take? Is there any kind of pathway like that you can work with them on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, Aaron mentioned earlier that there's a lot of areas across your security that you can validate, and it's a case of taking it step by step. But really, you need to be making those decisions based on context and your threat profile. So really understand the type of actors that are targeting your organization, the greatest risks based upon the type of infrastructure that you have, users in your environment, the applications that you're using, and really tailor your validation program around you as a business, because every organization is different, right? Every organization is set up differently. So it's important not just to adopt a blanket approach, but more of a custom approach to validation, so you can really start to prioritize the areas of your security based on some of those factors.
Gotcha. Okay. I think it's hard to say back in here in 2024, and how many people listen to this into the future thinking, well, I can't believe they were talking about this. But at the same time, I think cloud and SaaS and all the associated areas around that particular area have really built up over time. And I think, if we go back 10, 15 years, we might not have found that. But I think a few factors. One of those is AWS. I've always said that, AWS kind of, I think, has led the way for a lot of people to be able to do cloud. I think before there was that opportunity there, and maybe I'll come to you actually, Randy, for your comment on that. I think, sort of provisions that you can do actually around cloud have changed the way. And maybe, do you agree with that? Actually, that before, AWS's provisions and services and other cloud options, maybe cloud adoption was a bit harder. Is that something you'd agree with?
I think that's sorry.
Sorry, I wasn't sure who you were addressing that question.
I was going to Anthony, sorry, but I'll come to you after that,
Sorry.
Simon. Yeah, sure.
Oh no, Simon go first. That's Simon go first.
No, you go ahead.
Well, yeah, thank you. Well, it's a difficult one. I think there's cloud as an industry and everything that happens. It's all a natural curve, which is you see the benefit, you see the value. I think the democratization of access to compute is what's been one of the big propellers for moving into that space. There's a load of companies, particularly if you look at the SaaS market, that would just be unimaginable to exist without the ability to do consumption-based compute and access some of those services. You've only got to look at a couple of keynotes and see the likes of Netflix and Airbnb and all of these kind of large online platforms that have just grown exponentially over the last few years and the last decade. It's amazing that's the reason why cloud really grows. The other side of it as well, when we come to security, is also, and using security as an enabler, is just the visibility that customers get, but the ecosystem visibility, and then with solutions like Picus being able to gain even more visibility, which is why partnership is so efficient. So I think, to answer your question on what's been the growth of cloud, I don't think it comes down to any one individual or company. I think it's a wide array of companies seeing that the ability to do consumption-based compute and have access to new and evolving services, that is what's exciting. The old 5-year recycle tech refreshes, and I remember doing them, and you're trying to forecast and work out math. Yeah, I don't miss doing that. I like the idea that if a new Graviton is released like it was today, I can go and consume it as soon as possible, and I can have access as soon as possible, and that's what I want. I want to be able to use the best solution, the best offering at this moment, and not be penalized for choosing either other way.
Yeah, I think that's great. Simon, you were going to step in, but I think I've got something else. But you go ahead.
No, I mean, I would really just echo a lot of Anthony's points there, that AWS and other providers are really helping organizations to really fuel their digital transformation journey and really benefit from the power of the latest technologies like machine learning, like serverless and running Kubernetes, and really benefit from the latest technologies. So it's an exciting time, but with that obviously comes responsibility of cloud security as well. And cloud shouldn't be seen as, I think Anthony mentioned at the beginning, as a prohibitive factor, and there's no reason that it shouldn't be now, with the range of solutions that are available, and certainly the fact that a lot of cloud security can be automated now, and will continue to improve in that area as well, to try and take away some of that manual pain from security teams.
Yeah, I think automation is a really key part of that as well. It's I don't know if it's purely a cloud thing, but it's certainly it's a key part of cybersecurity now. I think, as Anthony mentioned earlier on, about lack of people, lack of resources, lack of budget, probably everyone would agree with. And actually a way of getting around that is to sort of automate tasks. Then that's going to be a positive thing. We've got around about 10 minutes left, so please do vote in the poll if you haven't already. Just a reminder, if you aren't seeing that, then you might need to go from full screen, minimize, so you should see that appear. So please do vote. Again, we'll run that. We'll close that up in about 5 minutes. We've had a few questions from the audience, so we'll just jump through those before we run out of time. Interesting one here, which asked, does cloud security differ in a hybrid or multi-cloud arrangement, or differently? Aaron, I don't know if you wanted to take that, or obviously I'll wait for one of you to put your hand up, but I'll just pick someone otherwise because Aaron's not spoken for a little while. Is there a difference between a hybrid or multi-cloud arrangement when it comes to cloud security and maybe even cloud security posture management?
Yeah, I think there is. I think there's a wide variety of differences. When it comes to having a hybrid cloud environment, I think the testing is different. I think that the configurations are different. There's so many aspects of having a hybrid model, but I think it's absolutely important to really have a hybrid model. It gives you much more control from an on-prem perspective as to say a cloud environment. That the compensating controls are a little bit different as well. When you're dealing with something or specific attacks like data exfiltration, there are different avenues in which the exfiltration of data can be performed. It's just what level of hybrid can be consumed.
Mm. Yeah. I mean, just a sort of a quick offside there. I mean, do you see a lot of people doing hybrid still, or is it? I mean, maybe just sort of to follow on my question from Simon just now, and the questions I have been asking about, kind of going full cloud suite. Do you see, Aaron, maybe, do you see people doing a hybrid option? Is that kind of a stepping stone to it, or people still want to keep their foot in the network as well?
Yeah, I do. Most of the organizations that I talk to, they do have hybrid models, and a lot of them have multiple cloud instances and providers as well. Of course, having that on-prem, it gives them a level of I think assurance a little bit further than just going completely either on-prem or completely cloud.
Gotcha. Okay. We'll just look at another question we had actually, which is about we're talking about pen testing, and just before we do come to that, Simon, we talked a bit about attack simulation in the webinar today. Can you talk a bit about how that is different from pen testing? What's the difference between the two?
Yeah, sure. I can do that. So pen testing is a form of validation. I think when we talk about pen testing, I guess what we're referring to here is an ethical hacker performing testing in an environment. Being manual in nature, a penetration test often is conducted infrequently. Compliance might require a penetration test to be conducted annually. I think, at best, a lot of organizations are perhaps doing it quarterly. But I think by nature of the scope that penetration testing has traditionally been done manually means that, that the scope is limited, and testing is conducted infrequently, and that doesn't enable organizations to really keep pace with changes in their environments. And so whilst we would continue to recommend manual pen testing, we say augment that with automated assessments with attack simulation to really keep on top of day-to-day changes in your environment, and ensure that when you do conduct a manual pen test, it's conducted in the most appropriate areas. Because there's nothing more frustrating than to pay for a pen tester to test your environment for a couple of days, and then to find like a really low level vulnerability or misconfiguration that you could have identified automatically. That's not a good use of the pen tester's time, and doesn't lead to the best outcomes. So automate with attack simulation, and continue to conduct manual assessments, but maybe less frequently, or ensuring particular areas of your network that are particularly in need of testing.
Understood. Yeah, it's a question of how do you know how strong your defense is unless you test it out? And again, a whole section of this industry exists in ethical hacking, pen testing, and there's some incredibly good companies and people who do that. But I guess doing an automated kind of test on that is a way of keeping yourself up to date, because otherwise talking about misconfigurations earlier on is another consideration. We did have a question saying, do current IT health check pen tests miss anything in the cloud? I'm not sure if anyone wants to take that. Maybe I'll throw that to Aaron. It's like you're nodding. Yeah, go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, pen tests are point-in-time assessments. They're critical to the business, just depending on what you're pen testing. But one thing that they do miss, and Simon said it, it's limited in scope. Most of them are they're limited by budget. Once a pen test has achieved its goal, it stops. So when we look at a pen test, one thing that a pen test does not tell you is how your compensating controls responded. And I think that's the big key here. So we run our pen tests, we check our box. Certainly wouldn't tell anybody not to pen test. We definitely want to do that for compliance purposes. But definitely one thing that it does not do is tell you how your compensating controls responded to those attacks.
Gotcha. Okay. It's just a question we had in, and I won't lie, I did have to Google what ITHC was before I actually understood what a health check, but that makes a bit more sense. But talking about pen testing, CVSS scoring, I mean that's a different conversation altogether. But it's only an interesting one that we were able to cover there. I think we'll just start to wrap things up with the last poll. So thanks to the few of you who did vote, but thanks for those of you who did. We asked, what type of tools do you use to manage your cloud security? 50% of you a combination. Actually, it was half of you who voted, and then a quarter each for cloud native and open source. No one said none. So you're using something, which is very, very good. So we will. Well, thank you very much for those of you who voted today, and thanks for those of you with the questions as well. Someone did ask if this is going to be available to watch again. It will be. We will be pushing this on SC UK soon as possible to get this, so you can watch this webinar all over again. And we do have some other webinars going back last couple of years. Actually, this is the first one we've done for some time, and big thanks to those of you who have joined us for this one, because it's been it's been good fun getting back in front of you all and teaching you something with these with these great speakers. So I think we will start to wrap things up there. So big thanks again to Picus for their sponsorship today, and our speakers Anthony Holmes, Simon Monaghan and Aaron Harrell. As I said at the start of the webinar, you can claim a CPE credit for attending this webinar. Just make sure you keep a note of the time spent on this webinar and then submit your time to your certifying body. A couple of notes for the diary. We've got another webinar coming up in about a month, I guess it would be August the 8th, and there is information on the website there, which is insight.scmagazineuk.com. Also look out for an event on September 4th where we're doing a full-day conference, well, a full day of various sessions in our Congress. Again, more information is on there. Lots of stuff on SC UK all the time, new content going up every day. We're picking the website, giving a whole new fresh lot of content every single day, so do keep in touch. You can follow me at Dan Raywood, and I better just throw back to Simon. Actually, if people want more information on Picus, Simon, what's the best way to get in touch?
Yeah, probably via our website, picussecurity.com. You can learn more about security validation with attack simulation, request a free trial, or a demo. And yeah, one of the team would be more than happy to tell you more. And of course, Picus Security, you can access it via the AWS marketplace as well. Do check out the marketplace, particularly have some credits that you could use against attack simulation.
Fabulous, yes. And if you do need to connect, they can always contact me or any member of the team here at SC, and we can obviously connect you with Picus. But yeah, probably best is to go directly to them and say, hey, we saw you on that SC UK webinar, and that's always good for everybody that way. So yeah, huge thanks again to Picus for the sponsorship, to our speakers, and to you for attending. We'll wrap this webinar now, so thank you very much. This webinar is now coming to an end.